Everybody, nice to see you again, and a very warm welcome to this week's LinkedIn Live with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And I'm really excited to be back. I was away last week. I was in the beautiful location of West Wales for some training. And I'm really excited to be back for this week's live, particularly as we've got a very, very exciting topic today. We're talking all about strategies for passive aggressive behavior, dealing with passive aggressive behaviors. Now, I am going to introduce myself because maybe some of you are joining me. You haven't been here before. And by the way, if you are joining here live, please feel free to say hello in the chat. It'd be great to see who's online with me today. And of course, if you're watching this later on replay, a very warm welcome to you as well. But first of all, let's come to some introductions. So my name is Victoria Reynoldson. I'm a communication coach and cultural intelligence trainer, and I work with future global leaders and global professionals all around the world. And what they want is to be able to elevate and amplify the way they're speaking to achieve the next step on their international career. Now, I do that through helping people to speak clearly, confidently, to be able to handle challenging conversations, as well as to connect well with the people that they work with all around the world with cultural intelligence. I've been doing this now for 9 years, and I moved into this space after initial career in marketing, working in global organizations. So I have some real life business experience as well. And what we do on these lives is basically, I like to share some of my key insights, ideas, strategies, but I want to make them super practical for you. So they're on topics that I get asked about by my own clients, and I want you to benefit from them as well. Now, before we're going to jump into today's topic, I'm just going to make absolutely sure that we have gone live. So I'm just going to give me a minute while I just double check that we are live. So just give me a second while I check all this. Yes, it looks like we are live. So that is brilliant news. One of my biggest fears, I'm just going to be talking to myself rather than recording this and broadcasting this out. So if you are here today, feel free to get involved. I want to make this as useful to you as possible. So feel free to say hi in the chat. Feel free to share your own experiences and bring your questions as well. This is where you'll get the most value and benefit from these sessions. Okay, so the topic for today is all about passive aggressive behaviors in the workplace. And I know it's a topic that I get asked about quite frequently by my clients. They experience something that has happened in an interaction, in a conversation, in a meeting, and they don't know how is the best way to respond to it. They may feel a strong emotional response. They want to remain professional and calm. And that's really challenging. It's really challenging to do. And it might be also because there's an element of politics going on. There's an element of people perhaps playing games within the situation as well. So let me ask you, have you ever experienced this? Ever had a situation where you felt you're experiencing passive aggressive behavior? If you have, type yes into the chat. I'm really curious to see if you've ever had this. I can imagine that many of you have had this experience. In fact, I know that probably most of you have, right? And the kinds of situations that people talk about to me, and I know I've had sometimes myself, are where you've had a situation and you've emailed somebody and they just won't reply to your emails or your messages. Ever experienced that one? Type yes if you have in the chat. Or maybe it's that you had a request, you had some important information or document that you needed from the other person, and it was quite urgent. And yet again, they didn't respond to you. It could be that you invited them to a meeting and they just won't respond to the invitations, they won't turn up to the meeting, and you feel perhaps ignored. Perhaps you feel like there's something going on that's personal. And yeah, when you go and talk to the person and check in and ask them, is everything okay? They just smile and say, yeah, sure, of course, everything's fine. And you can't quite understand what's really going on. What's happening underneath the surface, which is driving these behaviors. But clearly can be quite frustrating. It can trigger all sorts of emotions in you. It can be incredibly frustrating because it might be that you can't get your projects and tasks done because you're reliant on others. And you can't seem to find an obvious solution to move forward. This is the real problem with it. So, what do we do with all of this? I think it is really very important to have a strategy in place. When you experience these types of behaviors or communication style from others, you need to know, how do you respond? What is the right approach? Now, I do think it is worth having a conversation with that person. Probably not in the moment. It's worth thinking about leaving a bit of space. Let's take a practical example. Let's imagine that you have a situation where there is somebody in a meeting who you've noticed tends to interrupt you. Has this happened to you? So you are looking to express your opinions, you're looking to express your thoughts, and yet you feel like you are being interrupted, that they're cutting through you each time. And clearly, this isn't great. It's creating some negative emotions in you, and you obviously don't get the chance to express exactly what you think. So, how do we deal with this? Well, giving feedback is important. But first of all, I want you to think about designing the conversation. Now, this is a concept I've spoken about in, I think, maybe one or two previous lives, but certainly on my podcast episodes as well. And this concept of designing the conversation is really about helping you to think about how you want to approach this. And it starts with some questions, which include where? Where do you want to have this conversation? Sometimes when you need to have a conversation like this, it doesn't make sense to do it sitting down opposite each other in a meeting room. You might think about inviting them for a coffee if in the same location. Perhaps you can go outside the workplace and go somewhere different to have that conversation. But certainly, whether you're doing it virtually or in person, I would really think about designing it in a way that it's different from your usual interaction. And you want to do it live. So that means meeting them in some way, not doing this on email. Another really interesting idea that can really work is to design the conversation by going for a walk with them. This is a really great way. There's research that talks about it being very non-confrontational when you're walking side by side, and it makes it for a more relaxed, informal conversation where people can be a bit more open about what's really going on. And in fact, I recently published a really great episode, an interview with Lisa Partridge, where she does this exactly walk and talk format to help with big questions and difficult conversations. So if you're following the podcast, or even if you haven't, feel free to discover that really recent episode. So once you've thought about the where, think about the when. Now, It might be this happened, the fact that you're being interrupted in the meeting happened yesterday, and you're still feeling pretty annoyed about it, pretty irritated. So, what I would say there is, if you're still feeling those emotions, it's probably not the right time to go back, have that conversation, and give the feedback. So, give yourself the time, the space to process it, to calm down, and when you're feeling back in that mode of you can have a calm conversation, then you can move forward. And then finally, how are you going to have this conversation? Well, this is where I want to share with you this specific framework, which I think is really helpful for you. There are three key stages to this framework. There are past, present, and future. So let's start with past. What I want you to open up the conversation with is thinking about how you share the facts as you see it, the facts of what happened. And to help you with that, I want you to almost imagine a camera that was sitting on the wall in the meeting room when this meeting happened. And that video camera is recording everything that happened, and it's recording all the facts. So, to start with, I want you to report back the facts of the situation. If I'm going to use the situation that I mentioned earlier, that somebody's interrupted me and that's what I'm feeling frustrated by, I would report it like this. I'd use phrases like, I noticed, I saw, I heard, I observed. And I could say something like, I noticed in that meeting, when I started to speak, you came in and spoke on top of me. I noticed this happened a couple of times during the meeting. Now, you might hear me using this language, but I haven't used the word interrupted at all. Even the word interrupted has some level of emotion attached to it, negative emotion. Do you see what I mean? So, what you want to do is you want to take out the negative emotion and you want to be really just reporting those facts. I saw, I heard, I noticed, I observed. So, that's part one of the past. Part two is when you can go into the impact, and that's impact to you, impact to the meeting, even impact to the team that weren't necessarily in the meeting. And this is where you can talk about your emotions, how it made you feel. And because you've heard the facts first, which hopefully they can't dispute, then it's okay to be talking about those emotions and they won't be necessarily perhaps objecting to them or being defensive about them. So you can talk about the fact, this made me feel frustrated. This had the impact that I felt that I wasn't valued in my opinions. This meant that I felt like I didn't get the chance to say everything I wanted to say. And that really meant that I felt frustrated at the end of the meeting. So the idea of this part two of past is then you report that impact. And because these are your personal feelings, again, hopefully this isn't something they're going to be arguing against. So this is the past part of the framework. Now I want you to move into the present. And this is a very interesting section of the conversation because you're going to give the other person an opportunity to explain what their intention was. Now, what might happen is that they might say they didn't realize, they were completely unaware of what they were doing and the impact it had on you. And this can be very quickly resolved. However, clearly that may not be the case. There may be other reasons and drivers and motivations as to why they were doing what they were doing. And this is a really good opportunity to then invite them in to say, okay, why was this going on? To do this, I'd use a phrase like, could you help me understand what was happening there? Or could you tell me more about what was going on for you in that meeting? These are invitations for them to share more about what you can't see, about what was happening. And They may or may not share that. I think the reality is we're giving them the opportunity, but they may not exactly share the truth of what was driving their behavior. So spend a short time in this section in the present, but then you want to quickly move into the future, which is really the truest intention of this conversation. It's about finding a solution, finding a way to move forward. And with the future, I want you to think about a couple of things. The first part of this is requesting the behavior, the style of communication that you want to see in the future. And you can use phrases like, next time I would love to see, or at the next meeting, I would appreciate it if you could. So you're asking them for a specific action. And in the interrupting situation, you could ask them to allow you the space and time to fully express your opinions before they come in with theirs. The final part of this, which is something I picked up from somebody else, but I thought this was a genius idea, which I think is a brilliant part to this, is the final section of the future is asking for their commitment with a very simple question: can I rely on you? Can I ask for your commitment on this? This is brilliant because what you're doing is you're asking them to not only do this, but commit to it, to make sure that it does happen next time. And this allows you in the conversation to feel more reassured at the next meeting, but also to go back to them if it happens again to say, what happened there? I had your commitment that things were going to change. So there we go. We have the framework, the approach, past, present, future, for coming into this conversation to move through passive aggressive behaviors and try and find the way through. And I'm so pleased that you like that. Can I rely on you? It's a really powerful question, right? It really helps you to see if they are fully, fully committed to you. So I do hope you find that useful. And the next time you experience something like this, somebody not responding to you, not replying to your messages or emails, not giving you the information you need, not responding to your requests, or not even turning up to meetings, then you can use this conversation framework to help move you through. And that is where the power of it lies. So try this out. Try this out next time you have an experience with this. See how powerful it is to help move you through, and indicate as well to the other person that you're not willing to tolerate behaviors that are inappropriate or that are blocking you. I hope that you have found this super, super useful, and I really hope that it's going to help you move through. If this topic particularly resonates with you and you are somebody who is experiencing these kinds of challenging conversations and in the workplace, you find yourself wondering how to respond well to certain situations. Perhaps you even find yourself reacting in a way that you don't want to be, and want to find different ways with your own communication approach and behaviors. Then I would love to help you if you want to go deeper with this. I have a particular program, Global Leader Communication, which is absolutely designed for global professionals who are ready to go deeper, who are ready to up the stakes on their communication so they can start accelerating towards their next career step, that next promotion. If that's you, I would love to offer you the opportunity of a clarity call where we can understand better your situation, the specific challenges you're experiencing, and I can give you a couple of points of real clarity and insight around how you can change your communication approach to get better results, to be able to connect with people, get your tasks done, and your projects delivered. So if that's for you, feel free to DM me, and I would love to meet you for that clarity call. So that really brings us to an end today for today's live. It's been brilliant to have you join me. Thank you so much for being here. And I do hope you found this useful. I am doing a series of these lives every Friday at 1 p.m. So I very much look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, have a super weekend. And if you have any suggestions for topics you'd love for me to talk about to do with communication or culture, DM me. I'd love to make these really practical sessions so you have something that you can learn and take away from them. Brilliant. Well, listen, have a great weekend, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you next Friday. Bye for now.